Yeah, and so that's what's been going on with gold and the Fed. We haven't had a chance to speak since everything started going on between Russia and Ukraine. We saw really big move in gold. It's since pulled back. I wondered if I could get your thoughts there because, we hear a lot that geopolitical events provide a short-term boost, not long-term. What are your thoughts on what we've seen?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that geopolitical stuff, assuming it ends and it doesn't continue for long periods of time, that run to safety is a run into gold. And so again, when we saw the spike up to over $2,000 an ounce, I think that was right in the midst of kind of the crazy initial move into with Russia invading Ukraine. And the thesis for the pullback, right? So we've already pulled back from about 2075 back down to about 1940 today on gold, is that I do think that there will be some peace deal worked out in the next week or two. And I think that when you get that, you'll get an initial sell off in gold. Now, that's just the initial reaction. Just like the pop up when the invasion started, you're going to see a quick reaction to the downside. And as investors, as myself, I will be looking to buy that. Because once the dust settles, once that invasion, once let's say peace comes back to that area, then people will start saying, okay, now let's focus back on inflation and what the Fed is going to do. And ultimately, again, there's no way to really get long-term inflation back under 2%, in my opinion, without having really, some sort of depression and really flush out.
Okay, and I hope that we could also talk about, trading during times of war and conflict, just in general, not even related to gold.
Yeah.
Because I know that last week you could basically, there are so many things going on. You could take your pick of what commodity or area was doing something interesting. What advice do you have?
Yeah, so number one is when things are most fearful, that's when you have to be a buyer. And we've seen it so many times over. A great example of this is that if you bring up the NASDAQ 100, right? So this low on the NASDAQ 100, that was when the markets opened, when the initial invasion took place. So you saw panic and fear. Russia was invading Ukraine, and it actually turned out to be the short-term low on the market. We rallied up. Then we came in, and again, we're rallying to the upside. And so that low is holding at this point. The reason why that's happening is because investors realize that the Federal Reserve may move slower on hiking, which means more money in the system with the invasion going on. So again, in the short term, those type of blips on the screen are usually kind of inverse reactionary things where you go opposite of if it's fear, you buy, if it's greed, you sell. Another great example of this was with the Chinese stocks. Chinese stocks had one of their biggest bounces, if not biggest bounce ever. Alibaba was up like 36% yesterday. Now, if you looked at what it did just prior, it was in a free fall, right? It had already been in a steep downtrend, and it was in free fall because, you heard that maybe China's going to help Russia. Then we're going to put sanctions on China. You heard about delisting because of the SEC. You heard about maybe China invading Taiwan. I mean, there was just this confluence of massive panic on these stocks. And again, what does it turn out to be? Well, when it's most fearful, that's the time to buy. So just kind of keep in mind as a trader, when you have these crazy emotional responses, it's usually wise, as hard as it is, to do the opposite.
Okay, great advice for everybody. So you've been talking to us for a while about the Chinese stocks.
Yeah.
You've also been keeping us informed on what's going on with Bitcoin. So let's touch on that just a little bit. I know you've been telling us that it's going to be heading downward. What have we seen from Bitcoin during all of this tumult in the markets?
Yeah, and you're right. I have been mentioning China stocks. And in all fairness, even after the big rally, I've been talking about them being good buys prior. So it hasn't been the best call at this stage. But again, I do think that the objective of the Chinese stocks is to understand that there's a long-term game plan here. China, just like we saw yesterday, they basically came out and said, hey, we're gonna stimulate our economy. We're gonna basically protect our tech stocks and help them now. And we're gonna make a deal with the SEC. That's a starting point in the right direction. So I do believe that, again, China's not out to crush their golden jewels, right? They're not looking to just kill their great companies. They want them to be big. They just want them to be not monopolistic so they don't end up controlling the government. The government there is really strict on seeing what's happened in the US with some of these tech stocks being able to control things, and they don't want that to happen. So again, I do believe in the longer term story of China and China stocks. And again, good to see that bounce yesterday. Now going to Bitcoin, let's take a look at the chart. So I still am in the same camp that we're going to head lower. I am long a small position in Bitcoin following or with this breakout. So this is a very short-term daily chart. And you can see we just broke above this little wedge pattern here. So I think there could be short-term upside, maybe to 45 to 46,000 over the next week. But once you take that into account and you erase these trend lines, the bigger pattern on Bitcoin is still very bearish. Big move down, and then you have this sideways consolidation. Historically, when you look at this pattern, this big move down with sideways consolidation, number one, it's referred to in technical analysis as a bear flag. Number two, if you looked at 1,000 patterns like this, probably about 75% of them broke down lower. So I do want people to realize that it doesn't guarantee that Bitcoin won't break out above this level here, but at least based on probabilities, you're looking for at some point, probably in the next 1 to 2 months, a break to the downside and a move down to probably 20,000 or sub 20,000. So unfortunately, as much of a long-term bull I am on Bitcoin, thinking it's worth 500 or $1 million, dollars, 500,000 or $1 million, in the near term, I still think there's got to be a downside move before we get to that point.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn 500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.